Midweek catch-up. I know a lot of you enjoyed the interview, a little thing I did with my niece up there on the mountain in Arizona, but you got ripped off at the same time because it's not what you expected. So I figured I'd just do a quick recap for you now that I'm back. Today's Tuesday, it's the 1st of October. I had to cut the trip short. Part of that reason was that I had to come back to write a rent check. I forgot to write a rent check before I left. Arr. Um, but it worked out good too because it was extremely warm there, which is not always the case. But it makes it so it's harder for me to do the work outside that I want to do, and I know cooler temperatures are coming, so it's fine. Didn't have to be there that long. Um, so I'm going to get into everything I did, what's going on with the house, what my plans are over there. Also, this thing with my throat, I noticed while I was there, I don't do this. I don't have the clearing in my throat and everything there. So it's just the air quality here in Los Angeles is really what's going on. There, it's very dry and it's clean air. It doesn't have all the traffic and everything. So I guess that makes sense, right? So when I got there, my niece, my sister and her daughter, my niece there, Nevaeh, who you met, which is heaven spelled backwards. That's her name. Is she the opposite of angelic? No, she's a good kid. But she right away said to me, I want to interview you on your YouTube channel. I said, okay, write down some questions. Now, she's 9 years old. She's never done it before. But she did an okay job. I mean, it was more fun us talking. Now, we'll do it again. I don't think she's seen it. That day we did that. We drove up the mountain, hung out up there, hiked around, got to the peak up there with her. Um, I didn't put pictures of that there, but it's all in there. And we did all that, and we did the interview, and that was fun. And she didn't follow up. I mentioned that because when she asked me if I had a girlfriend, that would have been a very funny discussion, and you guys would have been entertained by that. And it would have been fun to discuss with her because between her and her sister and my sister, her mother, I get them all mixed up. I get all their names mixed up. But there's been some silly things said about what they think about my choices, which is none of their business. But they never think to realize that they're coming from it from their perspective, which is all the perspective of women. And based on their personal experience, and I know their lives, I don't really blame them for having their perceptions the way that they think, because I understand what their lives are like. And I've schooled them on that and straightened them out. But it's a fun thing to discuss, and it would have been really fun for her. It would have been interesting because I could have helped her with knowledge about her own future being a woman. And that's going to happen, but she's 9. So I that flashed through my brain briefly while I was sitting there with her, and I chose not to keep going into it. And then the stories I was telling about my dad, some of you guys might have been bored by that because you've heard a lot of them before if you've been here, but she hasn't. That's all new stuff for her. And my sister, her mother, Aileen, is there's like a 10 or 11 year difference between our ages. And so she didn't have those experiences with our father like I did. So she had her own different ones. But even my other sister, Catherine, who's not with us anymore, she went fishing and stuff, but not the same. It's not the same. My dad wasn't the same with them as he was with me, which makes sense. I'm a man, right? Excuse me. So anyhow, that was fun for me to relay that stuff to her, and that was an overall good time. And afterwards, I took her out for a steak, and then got her some ice cream. I had to drop her off at her house. I had to do some stuff at the house, and then pack up because I left early yesterday morning. The drive is interesting. So it's an 8-hour drive. From my front door to there was 8 hours, pretty much on the number. And the van's doing great. I end up, I don't ever want to go at this speed, but in the Southwest, some of you guys don't know, but the speed limit out here is like 75 miles an hour when you're out there on the highway. And you know, you kind of just go with the flow. And I like to drive over in the left because I just have more freedom over there. So I end up driving faster than you would think. And in that van, I'm cruising about 80 miles an hour pretty much the whole way. And sometimes I'm doing 85. At some points, I found myself doing over 90 miles an hour. And the van, it cruises fine, which is, I like that. It's smoother. It's interesting. Different CVs, when I've had them in, have done different things. And there was one point when I first put the 32-inch tires on it and did the computer and everything and re-geared it, it felt like I lost top end. Uh, I don't know if things broke in or what, but I've got the speed back with it and the power. It's also smoother, but I've changed the CV since then. Now keep in mind the Track Motive CV axles, which are beefier, and they're designed for an extreme lift, so they'll work on extreme angles, which I don't have, but I will. They won't be extreme, but I am going to lift the front end of the van some more, and the rear. The whole van's going to come up a little bit more for more clearance with the tires, really. And when they go in, I think it's going to be even smoother, because I think that's really what's going on there. That little vibration you might feel. Those front CVs are spinning like that. So at any rate, it's not a complaint. Everything's fine. Didn't leak any oil. I have a little bit of a weeping going on, and I'm certain it's the oil pan gasket. It's not the main seal now. It's just, and it could have always been that thing. And I told them it was the main seal, but that's fine. But we'll get that dealt with. Drive back is always more brutal, and it took a little bit longer coming back. I did stop. I had a 5-gallon gas can in the big black box. And it's been sitting in there for a while. I bought it at Harbor Freight, and it's a copy of the World War II jerry can. They do a great job on it with everything except the cap. The cap just cracks for no reason. It breaks. And I couldn't make that work with the funnel that comes with it. And I stopped at a gas station. I thought, let me dump the gas from in there. It's been in there a long time. Let me put that in the tank. And they didn't have any funnels there. And I might have one in the van somewhere, but I didn't feel like it wasn't in the big black box where it should be, and I didn't feel like tearing the whole van apart to find a funnel. So I was at a Chevron, and I bought this fuel cleansing additive or whatever. It's the Techron. It comes in a pretty big container that I looked at it. It's got the long stem on it that'll go in and knock that little thing out. That little thing out when you stick the gas nozzle in the car. So I cut the bottom off that and turned it into a funnel. And that's how I was able to get 99% of the gas out of that can. Then I filled it up. And I felt like my performance after that was a little weird. But it had the fuel cleaning system stuff in it and that old gas. I'm almost on empty now. I'll fill it up. I'm sure it'll be fine. Again, no problems. No problems. Van is running great. So that's out of the way. As far as like, let's get to the duct tape drags. That was fun. You know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I've mentioned it in comments on Instagram, and I did the one video here. This guy, Dalton, he's got this name, Dalton Summit. I'm sure Summit is not his real last name. It's probably because he orders a lot of stuff from the Summit Racing catalog. I didn't have a chance to ask him that. But I was hoping to meet him. I like him. It's like I feel about him the way some of you guys feel about me. You watch somebody enough, you're like, that's a nice person. I'd like to meet that guy. The problem is, like, the more popular that person is, if they go out someplace, everybody's vying for their attention. And I really didn't want to be one of those people. But I did speak to him a couple times, and at one point I had him to myself for about 5 minutes or so, and we talked about a bunch of things. He gave me a little bit of advice, too, with the channel. About the name, I mentioned I might want to change the name. I think about it all the time, just changing it to Mike Z Design, because then it would encompass everything. I changed the Astrovan Tribe a while ago when I was doing all the work on the Astrovan. So he's like, if you're going to do it, you better do it now. He's like, it might even be too late for you to do it. So, but he was super cool. And just so you guys know, if you watch him, it's called Pole Barn Garage, Pole, Pole Barn Garage. Very cool dude. Funny guy and knowledgeable. He's only 31 years old. I was shocked. And he just gets these beaters. He loves GTOs. He knows what he's talking about with cars. He turns out he hasn't shared this, I don't think, but I will. I'll let the cat out of the bag. He's gone full-time YouTube now. He was a union electrician. So he had a good gig, making good money, and he quit that job to do YouTube full time because he's beginning to do that well with it. And he says his merchandising is really big. Like he's become like the sole client for one t-shirt company. And I said, well, can I use them? He goes, dude, they're too busy with me. So I'm like, dude, that's awesome. So his merch is what's floating him. He's getting paid with YouTube. I didn't ask him what his numbers were. It's none of my business. But he's doing well enough to stop being a union electrician at 31 years old. Now, if YouTube fails for him, he's got a skill. He could always go back to that. He didn't talk about that, but that's just a fact. And his, this guy, shoot a self-tapper in him. I mean, he self-taps all this stuff, puts floors back together. He basically gets these things looking okay and running pretty well, beats on them, sells them, turns cars over, and that's what he's doing. So you watch the channel, and it's fun. If you're into that sort of thing, it's a good time. The other good, fun part about it is the family atmosphere with it, because he's got his son helping him. He's got his girlfriend, who are great people. And then there's that big guy, Jim, that big giant guy, shaking that guy. You could see in the picture. We both have our thumbs up. Look at the size of that guy's mitts, man. The guy's got giant, he's just a big friggin' guy. He's not tall, but he's just beefy. And let me try to remember now. So I gave him a bunch of parts, and I gave Dalton a bunch of parts. So I gave Jim, so Jim picked up, I'm guessing it's about a 1964-65 Dodge Swept Line. It's got the 4 headlight front end on it. Mine had the 2 headlights. I had the 67. But they both had 318 V8s in them. So I had my original distributor with a Pertronix. Basically, you replace the points with this electronic ignition system that fits in there. I also had an extra cap and extra rotors. I gave him all that. That distributor had been run on a Dwell machine, so it's dialed right. And he was happy with that. I gave him some linkage for his carburetor. I gave him a real thick piece of steel angle that is like part of a bumper bracket, I believe. I gave him one of the hold downs for his battery. I can't remember what else, but that was the gist of it with him. And Dalton, I gave something I bought from Summit Racing over 20 years ago for the truck. I had it in for less than a month, and I took it out. It was an electronic fan, but it was a heavy-duty, made-in-the-USA unit. Had that rubber gasket around the front edge of it where it presses up against the back side of your radiator. Heavy-duty unit. I think it cost me $270 over 20 years ago, if I recall that correctly. So I gave him that. I gave him a Dwell meter in a box, and some other parts. I don't remember it all, but the really cool thing I gave him that I thought was cool were blue dots, glass ones, made in the USA, vintage, still in the paper. And so you could put them in your tail lights, on the ends of your tail lights, and they're illegal in some states. They used to be anyhow, because the blue is for the police, But they look cool when the light's on. And I always meant to drill out my tail lights on the Dodge, on the truck, and put them in. I never got around to it. So I'm looking forward to watching his future videos and seeing those parts get used. I gave him a bunch of stickers, and I didn't ask him for anything, it was funny. I mentioned this at the end of the duct tape drags video I put out. Like, even with Jim, when I showed him the distributors, like, how much you want for him? Like, I don't want anything, man, take it. These are things that were in my old box that's behind the van where I park it. And it used to be loaded with car parts back when I had the Dodge. I had a lot of extra parts. And when I sold that to this kid, he was like 19. It was like 2017, 2018. I sold the truck. I got it in like 93, 94. And I drove it from, let's say, 1994 till 2017. It was my daily driver, only car for a long time. I had other cars along the way here and there, but for the most part, it was just that truck. In Los Angeles. I drove it up to San Francisco a bunch of times, up to Mendocino County, broke down all the time, was always fixing it, did a lot of work on it. I did a posi traction rear end, and that Hoopers did that for me way back in the 90s, and it always leaked, and I forgot about that, and I should have never went back to those people. You guys know that story if you've been here long enough. Hoopers rear ends, do not go there. Sun Valley, horrible work. I will throw them under the bus every chance I get now. If you know, you know. What else did I do? Posi traction rear end, dual exhaust headers. Some guy had come up with a system to do disc brakes on that truck where he made like a 1/4-inch thick piece of steel backing plate, and then he had a whole list of parts that you would buy from other cars and GM calipers. And I did that. I built the whole front end with that. and I made it have front disc brakes. I put a power booster. I did a Corvette master cylinder. I did real electronic ignition distributor, the whole replacement distributor on that thing, bigger radiator. I still ran the 2-barrel carb, plenty of pep in that thing, plenty of speed, and yeah, that thing was like a race car work truck, man. It was a cool vehicle. I loved it. 4 on the floor. I've said it before. It was funny because on the train, it was a '67, but it was manufactured really in '66, and on the transmission, cast into the cast iron, it said November NOV 1966. Well, I was in my mother's womb at that time, so that truck was being made at the same time I was being made. You know what I'm saying? I was spit out December 28th, 1966. Oh, shit. Oh, this ought to be fun. Anyhow, that's that whole story there. Duct tape drives were interesting, met some fun people. Didn't know what to expect. I did not know that they weren't going to start dragging until 6 p.m., and I did not know that the next day is really the drag day and that it starts in the morning and they drag all day. Had I known that, I might have come in later in the day, set up and been prepared to maybe spend the night there. And now I know. So, and keep in mind too, that day I went on Friday. It was well over 100 degrees. I think it hit 107. I know it was 104 all day, but I think it hit 107 that day. You're on the pavement all day, and it's just it wears people out. Wore me out, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I left at like 8:30 that night. I did watch a bunch of drags, and that was fun. You saw the video, so now I know. So next year when it rolls around, I'm going to check the temperatures, and if it's going to be under 100 degrees, I'm going. And when I go, I will be geared up properly, and I'll do the 2-day event, and I'll spend the night, and I'll have everything I need to do it right, and it'll be cool. It'll be much cooler. Well, hopefully it will be if I'm there. Temperature-wise, it'll be cooler too. But I look forward to that next year because that was a fun event to go to. So yeah, I know the video might have been like I was critiquing it a little bit too much because I just think they could do a better system for getting in there. But that's me. You know, I can't help it. I'm always think about better ways to do things. That's why I'm able to survive doing what I do for a living. I figure out better ways and cooler ways to do things. What else? The house. So I didn't do a walk around with the camera. I did walk around the house a lot. I measured some things up. I went to the Home Depot and looked at their nursery. I have to find a nursery in town. I think there is one. And I have, they're on the phone, but they had, they had fig trees there that they had figs, they had mulberries. I'll definitely be putting some mulberry trees in there. And they had peppers and all that normal stuff. They had different types of apricots and these weird pineapple fruit things. And I talked to the kid at the register. He said seasonally they get different stuff in. I asked him about blueberries and everything. He says in the wintertime they get blueberry bushes in. So, I've got a big mulberry tree in the backyard now, but it's the Chinese version. So it's the white berries. You can't really eat them. I'm taking that down completely. Going to dig the roots out. It's going to be a major job. I got another tree on the other part of the yard that is some weird thing, slightly thorny. I've kind of shaped it into, it's where I was doing the interview. Not the interview, but at the end of the duct tape drags video I did, you see me sitting by a tree, untrimmed. Last year I trimmed it like a giant bonsai. It was really cool. You could see through it. I didn't do any work on that this time around, but that's probably going to come out too. All the stones have to come out of the backyard. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to do there, landscaping wise. Next to the house, there's a unit, there's an air conditioning unit. So where I want to build a shop space, I can kind of only build up to that, and then I have to jog around it to the front of the house where there's a concrete wall with a metal gate there. If you look at the picture of the house, you can see it. You're looking at the house, there's a metal gate there. So from the metal gate going in, I think it'll be about 10 feet in until I pass where the unit is. There's going to be a deck there, and then the building will start. And I think I got about 16.5 by 16.5 square space. But I got to walk down the side of it between that and the house. So I think I might end up with about a 12-foot wide by 16-foot long if I get tight to the wall, which I think I can do legally. I'll know that after I talk to the guy up the street. There's a place there called Mr. Shed. They build sheds that look like little houses and all that there. They also do home construction in the area. And the guy who owns that place, his name is Tracy. Really nice guy. He knows who I am. So I'm going to have him come down and talk to me about it. My thought process is basically deck that whole area and then construct the building on the deck is what I'm thinking. I know that's weird because the decking can get wet and whatnot, but I have ways to deal with this. And then I'll still probably put plywood on the decking inside the structure to make that real strong and smart and critters and everything else. So, and that'll be a cool little spot where I'll have like a little workshop there. Big barn door that opens to the side and one on the back, bunch of airflow. And then the first 10 feet of that deck in the front, the roof's going to come over that as well. So I have a be about a 10 by 10 area of deck that'll be covered. It gets light there in the morning. The sun comes up that way, and then it's on the south side of the house. So the sun comes up, goes around the side of it, and then around the backyard and sets over the backyard. So it'll be good. And that's an unusable space really there now. So that's eventually what's going to happen. That costs money, so I need to make some money, and I don't know where that's going to come from right now. There's a lot of stuff to do in the house. I do. It's going to need a new roof at some point. I got to replace some fascia boards and put 2 gutters up in the front. And a lot of interior work. All kinds of stuff is going to happen there. My sister has this sale ongoing where she has a lot of stuff that my mom had bought and collected over the years. A lot of dolls and stuff like that. A lot of Christmas decorations, all kinds of stuff in these big bins. The garage is full of that and clothes and everything else. So I can't do anything really until she gets all that stuff out of there. She says that she could get it all out of there in the next month or so. So that needs to happen. I'm kind of on her about it, and she's aware. So hopefully that'll happen here pretty soon, and then I'll start going back and forth and working on it. I did have the epiphany while I was there. At any point in time, if I wanted to, I could just move there and just live there and just abandon this altogether. And the house is paid for. The taxes went up. I got the bill for the taxes this year. It's almost $1,000. Last year it was like $740. So, and now I got to pay that. So, but that's relatively inexpensive, man. The tax. Let's say you spend $1,000 a year on your taxes, and I think the insurance on a house is only like $89 a month. And I got a deal with the cable, so it's just internet. It's $30 a month. I'm paying all that right now, and electric isn't that much. So it's not that bad. Matter of fact, I got a bill from the town too, and I think that's like $70 a month or something. That like covers your water and your trash and everything else. So you do the math, you could live there for next to nothing. And basically what YouTube's paying me right now, I think I could live there, So as long as I did some other stuff and picked up a little bit of work, I can make it happen. But a short transition, a transition over a period of time of short trips where I'm going back and forth and I'm bringing stuff there and working on the place and dialing it before I go there. In the interim, while I'm there working, I'll go out more and I'll meet some people. I'll do some networking. And I think if I put an ad out there, I drove around some neighborhoods in Syracuse. There's some nice neighborhoods there. There's definitely people who have money there, like there is everywhere. So I think that if I put some ads in the paper, just a little mention and the local Craigslist, things like that, letting them know, hey, there's a higher end craftsman now here living here. If you need something done, boom. I don't think it would take long at all before I started picking up some work there. By the way, I am between jobs right now. I don't have any projects lined up. I have some things I got to talk to people about. But I think what I might try doing is just hustling here for the next month or so. I got to do those holsters. I got to finish up. There was 5 or 7 of you that wanted these flap shoulder holsters that I made. So I got to make some more of those. I got to get some more material for that. There's the watch band stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that I just left hanging at the beginning of the summer because I just got super busy with work, which was awesome. So I'll go back to hustling. Maybe some bike videos will be coming up and that sort of thing. The garage store sale thing at my friend Kurgi's house, that just didn't happen because it took so long to get that cover built. And now she's having something there at the moment where these women come in and they sell all these like vintage clothing and whatnot to people in the industry, like people in the film industry and that's in fashion industry, things like that. So they pay her really well to rent her yard for the sale. Everybody makes money and they're happy. I have some very rare items that I'm going to put some crazy numbers on and bring over there too. So I got to do that this week probably. And that's what's happening with that. So I feel like you're pretty well up to date now of what's going on, what happened during the trip, what's going on with the house, what my thought process is with that, and working on it. There's a lot of work there. So, oh, the VA is interesting. So I got a thing from the VA. On one hand, it's disappointing, but another thing happened too. So they only rated me at 10%. It's like the hearing thing. They said that the thing about my ankles doesn't make any sense because they're saying that they're denying it. They're saying, no, pre-existing condition. Now, I went to the guy, and he talked about my ankles, and he looked at my record and goes, dude, I could tell by looking at your record that you kept getting injured because there's a medical record of it, and I could tell they were trying to get you out of there, too, based on the way things went. And so we talked about it. He said he was going to fill that out right, and he said I'd be taken care of, but then they denied it. They said that as far as the PTSD thing goes, that's been deferred is the word that they used. But I got 2 checks from them. One was for just under $200. The other one's just under $800, I think, or $700. Basically, it's about $800 that they sent me. The VA sent me. I don't know what that's for then. If you're not, unless that's, are they paying me that because it's a 10% rating or something? That seems kind of high. But if that's the case, and they're going to basically send me $800 a month, I'm happy with that. That would be fine with me. Perfectly fine with me. I don't know. If you know something more than I do, let me know. But I might try to reach out to that doctor that I talked to, who happens to be Mike Tyson's brother. He's from Brooklyn. He's a brain surgeon here in town. He was a Navy corpsman for 10 years. Great guy. I'd love to have him to do an interview with him on the channel, separate of my BS, you know. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm happy with that. If they start sending me that every month, that's golden, because between that and YouTube, that covers my bills here, living here. Basic bills as far as my rent and my normal living expense. I just need to do something to make some money, and that takes a huge, stone off my back. You know what I mean, so to speak. And if I was living in Arizona and that was coming in, then that makes life a lot easier. So we'll see if we can make all this happen. Any advice on that would be great. Speaking of, that gets the comments. Always weird comments on stuff. I don't know, man. You know what? I'm not going to do that right now. We'll deal with that in another video. Maybe this week's Sunday night chat. It's only Tuesday now. I'll keep you short. I don't think I've been talking for an hour, which I normally like to do. When I'm in this seat, you can usually expect me to be talking for an hour. Sunday night chat, that's what I try to do. But that's it for now. I got to get to the shop here. I got to go buy the fixings for my stew for this week, which I'll make tomorrow morning. I got to go by the watch shop. I got to talk to the people who let me use their garage as a workshop. Phil's box, his kitchen box I'm building for his van, I got stuck dead in the water because I want to put the drip rail around. I got this router system. I'm going to do a whole video on that. Maybe I might even do it today. If I don't, definitely tomorrow. But it didn't come with a fence that, you attach to the base of your router so you can ride up along something, and that's how I do that. And we'll talk about that in that video as it comes, because I just bought the part brand new in the box. It looks pretty cool. I haven't taken it out of the box yet, but I want to do all that for you guys and show that to you in a separate video. So if you're interested in woodworking and tools and that sort of thing, you might get a kick out of that. My history with my routers and why I'm using this router and all that other good stuff. So that's it for now. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Come back often. Tell your friends. Be kind to one another. I'll catch you in the next one.